For years, I perfected the art of keeping the wrong people out of my luxury car showroom. Then, one quiet Tuesday, the wrong person turned out to be my new boss. The polished marble floor of the Prestige Motors showroom was my kingdom. Every morning, I'd watch the sunlight glint off the $1 billion worth of automotive perfection under my care. I wasn't just a salesman, I was a gatekeeper, a curator of dreams for the 1%. My boss, Mr. Sterling, had a mantra he had drilled into us. Image is everything. We don't sell cars, we sell an exclusive reality. And I was his most loyal soldier. It was a quiet Tuesday. The air was still, smelling of rich leather and expensive air freshener. I was adjusting my tie in the reflection of a midnight blue Apex GT, a $3 million work of art, when I saw her. She was walking across the vast forecourt, not from the client parking, but from the main street. That was the first red flag. Our clients arrived in vehicles that were, at the very least, worthy of being traded in. They didn't walk. She was a black woman, maybe in her late 40s. She wore a simple charcoal gray pantsuit that looked comfortable but utterly devoid of any designer logo I could recognize. No flashy jewelry, no six-figure handbag. She carried a plain canvas tote bag, the kind you'd take to a farmer's market. Her hair was in neat, intricate braids that fell just past her shoulders. She moved with a calm, deliberate pace, her eyes scanning the building not with the wide-eyed awe of a tourist, but with a quiet, analytical focus that was unsettling. My internal alarm bells, honed by years of spotting time wasters and photo takers, were screaming. My job, as I saw it, wasn't just to sell cars, it was to protect the sanctuary, to keep the delicate ecosystem of wealth and privilege free from disruptions. Mr. Sterling would have my head if I let someone wander in and start taking selfies for their social media, making our legitimate clientele feel uncomfortable. As she reached the towering glass doors, I moved to intercept her. I put on my most practiced smile, the one that was both welcoming and dismissive, a fine art I'd perfected. "Good morning," I said, my voice smooth as silk, positioning myself just slightly in her path. "Can I help you with something? The bus stop is just around the corner, if you're lost." She stopped and looked at me. Her eyes were a deep, intelligent brown, and they held my gaze without a flicker of intimidation. It was like being appraised by a geologist studying a common rock. "I'm not lost," she said, her voice even and low. "I'm here to see the cars." I kept the smile plastered on my face. "Of course. This is a private showroom, however. Viewings are typically by appointment only. Are you here to meet with one of our associates?" I was giving her an out, a chance to realize her mistake and retreat gracefully. "No," she said simply. "I don't have an appointment. I'd just like to look around." This was the moment of decision. I could feel the eyes of my colleagues, David and Chloe, on me from across the showroom floor. They were watching to see how I'd handle it. This was a test. I puffed my chest out slightly. "I'm afraid that's not possible. As I said, this is a very exclusive environment. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the dealership down the road. They have a fine selection of mid-range vehicles." I expected indignation, maybe an accusation. Instead, she just gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod, her gaze drifting past me to the Apex GT. "That's a beautiful machine," she said, her voice tinged with genuine appreciation. "The carbon fiber monocoque must make it handle like a dream." Her technical knowledge surprised me for a second, but I recovered quickly. She probably read a magazine. "It is," I said stiffly. "And with a $3 million price tag, it's for our most discerning collectors only. We require financial pre-qualification, just to schedule a test drive." It was a verbal sledgehammer, designed to crush any lingering hope she might have. She met my eyes again, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something in them. Not anger, not embarrassment. It looked impossibly like pity. "I see," she said softly. That look, that single moment of her pitying me was what broke my professional facade. Who did she think she was? I took a firm step forward, my body now fully blocking the entrance. My smile was gone. "Listen," I said, my voice dropping to a low, firm command. "I don't know what you're doing here, but this place isn't for you. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Now." I held my ground, feeling a surge of victory. I had protected the brand. I had done my job. She simply stood there in silence for a long moment, the city traffic a distant hum behind her. The standoff felt like an eternity. Then, A sound from behind me made me jump. It was the frantic clicking of expensive shoes on marble, moving at a near run. "Miss Davenport!" a panicked voice cried out. "Miss Davenport, my sincerest apologies. We weren't expecting you today." I turned, my heart suddenly hammering against my ribs. It was Mr. Sterling, my boss. His face was pale, his usually immaculate hair was slightly disheveled, and his eyes were wide with a terror I had never seen before. He rushed right past me, practically shoving me aside, as if I were a piece of furniture, and came to a halt in front of the woman. He was wringing his hands, his head slightly bowed in deference. My blood turned to ice. My mouth went dry. Mr. Sterling, a man who treated senators like errand boys, was looking at this woman like she was a god. The woman, Miss Davenport, finally looked away from me and gave Mr. Sterling a cool, measured smile. "Hello, Robert," she said, her calm voice cutting through the tension like a diamond blade. "I was just in the country for a few days. I thought I'd stop by and see how my latest acquisition was doing." My latest acquisition? The words didn't compute. They were just sounds hanging in the air. But my brain, which was suddenly running on dial-up, couldn't assemble them into anything that made sense. I stared at Mr. Sterling, my boss, my mentor, the man whose approval I craved, as he groveled before this woman I had just tried to shoo away like a stray cat. His face, usually a mask of tanned, confident authority, was crumpled with desperation. "I am so sorry for the confusion at the door, Miss Davenport, Mr." Sterling stammered, shooting a look at me that was so full of venom it could have curdled milk. We weren't informed of your visit. I would have rolled out the red carpet myself." Miss Davenport's calm gaze shifted from Mr. Sterling back to me. It felt like being pinned by an entomologist. My entire life, my career, my carefully constructed persona as the top dog in this temple of wealth was being examined under a microscope. "A red carpet isn't necessary, Robert," she said, her voice still quiet, yet it seemed to fill the entire forecourt. "Just a little basic courtesy. Your employee here," she gestured vaguely in my direction, not even bothering to look at me directly, "seemed to think I was lost. He was very insistent that this place wasn't for me." The world tilted. My blood pounded in my ears, a frantic drumbeat of doom. Davenport, asterisk, Davenport, asterisk. The name was starting to click into place, dredged up from the deep recesses of financial news reports I usually ignored. Davenport Capital, the colossal private equity firm that had been in the news for a series of aggressive, high-profile takeovers. A shiver of pure, undiluted horror snaked its way up my spine. "He is new, mister," Sterling lied, the words tumbling out of his mouth in a desperate bid to save himself. "Inexperienced. He's still learning the Prestige Motors way, and I assure you he will be re-educated. Immediately." I wanted to speak. I wanted to apologize, to explain, to somehow rewind time by 5 minutes, but my mouth was full of sand. My tongue was a lead weight. I could only stand there, a statue of my own stupidity, my $1,000 suit suddenly feeling like a cheap Halloween costume. "Miss..." Davenport finally turned her body to fully face Mr. Sterling, a silent dismissal of my existence. "Your way seems to involve judging potential clients by the brand of their handbag rather than the content of their bank account. An interesting, if outdated, business model." She took a step towards the glass doors I had so proudly blocked just moments before. "Davenport Capital finalized the purchase of the entire Prestige Motors global brand last Thursday. I thought I'd pay a visit to one of my larger showrooms to see the state of the asset firsthand. So far," she paused, letting the word hang in the air, "I'm not impressed." She walked past me and into the showroom. The automatic doors slid open for her with a soft whoosh, a sound that now seemed to mock me. She owned the doors. She owned the marble. She owned the $3 million Apex GT I had used as a shield for my own prejudice. Mr. Sterling scurried after her, already whispering frantic assurances and explanations. I was left alone outside, in the sun. I felt dizzy. I saw David and Chloe staring at me from behind a pillar, their faces pale with shock and a little bit of morbid glee. My kingdom had been conquered, and I hadn't even realized there was a war. I had barred the queen from her own castle. My legs finally remembered how to work. On autopilot, I followed them inside, my polished shoes making no sound. The air conditioning was a frigid blast, but I was sweating. Miss Davenport was gliding through the showroom, Mr. Sterling a half step behind her, pointing out features and sales figures like a nervous tour guide. She ignored him completely. She ran a hand along the fender of a crimson Veyron, her expression unreadable. She peered into the cockpit of a silver McLaren. She moved with the easy authority of someone who wasn't just looking. She was taking inventory. Finally, she came to a stop in the center of the showroom. The place fell silent. Even the hushed whispers of my colleagues died out. She turned slowly, her gaze sweeping over the cars, the cathedral-like ceiling, and then finally her eyes landed on me. I was standing near the entrance, a ghost at the feast. She didn't speak to Mr. Sterling. She spoke directly to me. Her voice was no longer soft. It was clear, sharp, and echoed slightly in the vast silent room. Quote, 31, she said. I flinched as if struck. She took a few deliberate steps towards me, her simple shoes clicking on the marble. She stopped right in front of the midnight blue Apex GT, the very car I'd been preening in front of when she arrived. She gestured to it with a nod of her head. Quote, 32, she said, her eyes boring into mine. Quote, 33, A cold, terrifying smile touched her lips. Quote, 34, The silence in the showroom was absolute. It was thick, heavy, and suffocating. Every eye was on me. David and Chloe were practically holding their breath. Mr. Sterling looked like he was about to have a heart attack, his face a ghastly shade of gray. And Miss Davenport just stood there, impassive, waiting. Sell it to me. The words were a death sentence. How could I sell a car to the woman who owned the entire company? It was a test, but not one about salesmanship. It was a test of character, and I had already failed in the most spectacular way possible. My mind raced. My usual script, a well-rehearsed symphony of horsepower, heritage, and exclusivity, was useless. All those lines about joining an elite club, about a lifestyle only a select few could understand, they were now a monument to my own arrogance. I was the one who didn't understand. I had mistaken immense power for meekness, understated class for poverty. I had judged the book by the cover, and the cover was a quiet literary masterpiece while I was a glossy, empty-paged magazine. I took a shaky breath, the expensive air-conditioned oxygen feeling thin in my lungs. I looked from her calm, unblinking eyes to the magnificent machine beside her, the Apex GT. I did know it. I knew every bolt, every stitch of Alcantara, every line of code in its engine management system. I'd spent countless hours studying it, dreaming about it. My passion for the car itself was the only genuine thing I had left. Quote, 35, I began, my voice hoarse. I saw Mr. Sterling flinch out of the corner of my eye. Quote, 36, she asked, one eyebrow arching slightly. Quote, 37, I said, finding a sliver of courage. Quote, 38, I walked slowly towards the vehicle, running my hand lightly over its carbon fiber flank, avoiding her gaze. Quote, 39, I paused, finally daring to look at her. Quote, 40, I let my hand drop. My spiel was over. I hadn't praised her. I hadn't groveled. I had simply spoken the truth about the machine. I had, in my own clumsy way, just described her. The silence returned, more intense than before. I had just implied that everyone else in the room who bought our other cars was a show-off, right in front of my boss and the new owner. My career wasn't just over. It was a crater. Miss Davenport was quiet for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then, a slow, genuine smile spread across her face. It transformed her features, warming her analytical eyes. That, she said, her voice softer now, is the best pitch I have heard in a very long time. She turned to Mr. Sterling, who looked utterly bewildered. Robert, I want this man's details. He has a keen eye for what matters. Then she looked back at me. But not for people, not yet. The warmth in her eyes was replaced by a familiar, sharp intensity. You have a passion for the product, but your judgment is clouded by shallow metrics. Image is not everything. Substance is. You almost cost my company a customer today. Not me. I wasn't a real customer. But what about the next one? The brilliant programmer who dresses in hoodies, the unassuming entrepreneur who drives a 10-year-old sedan. You are the gatekeeper, but you're guarding the wrong gate. She reached into her simple canvas tote bag and pulled out a plain black business card. She held it out to me. My hand trembled as I took it. Alara Davenport, CEO, Davenport Capital. My office in New York is assembling a new global acquisitions team, she said. We need people who can see the underlying value in an asset, not just the polished exterior. You clearly have the first part down. I'm willing to see if you can learn the second. She held my gaze. You're fired from Prestige Motors, effective immediately. Your new job starts Monday. 9 a.m. Don't be late, and wear whatever you want, as long as you bring your brain. With that, she turned and walked towards the exit, not even giving the cars a second glance. Mr. Sterling, his jaw hanging open, scrambled to follow her, stammering about logistics and transitions. I was left standing in the middle of my former kingdom, holding a small black card that represented both the end of my world and the beginning of a new one. I looked down at the Apex GT, its midnight blue paint shimmering under the lights. It was a beautiful machine, a masterpiece of substance. And for the first time, I felt like I was finally beginning to understand what that truly meant.